Welcome back to our podcast series for the perfect match on talent management. Joining us today again for our second podcast is Anders de Vos. Welcome back. And as in the first series, we want to talk about a statement. Things are going on in talent management. In today's agile organizations, the traditional constraints of rigid organizational charts and job structures have become outdated, some say, paving the way for a more flexible, skills-based approach. What do you think?
I have two overall thoughts on this. First of all, I do not believe that focusing on a more skill-based approach will automatically also rule out formal structures. And I think we exactly need to be aware of the risks of focusing too much on skills, that we're going to over-engineer in measuring skills, trying to forecast skills, and forgetting that this might also create a huge load on managers, on peoples to navigate into those skill structures. But that being said, I do believe that the first part of the statement, we have to get rid of those rigid organizational charts and job structures, is indeed true. We need, first of all, an organization that has sufficient adaptive capacity to change jobs, to change structures, to change routines and cultures, so that people also are able and encouraged to change.
That sounds a lot like what Josh Bursing was talking about over summer. Skills-based approach, not being new. Competence management has been around forever, and it'll take more to actually make it work than just setting up a new skills database.
I think we better talk about becoming a developmental organization rather than a skill-based organization. And that sentence is in itself also not new. I owe it to Robert Keegan, who already published on that several years ago in his book, Becoming a Deliberate Developmental Organization, where I think that also reflects much more the dynamic idea behind it than focusing on skills. Because for me, if you talk about a skill-based organization, then you just use a smaller unit of analysis. You focus no longer on jobs or on departments, but you focus on skills as the core element around which you might find a match between what you as an organization need and what people have or possess or want to develop. And that's fine. But just by narrowing down from a job to a skill level will not put things in motion from itself. You really need to establish this developmental culture.
Makes me think that for skills, there is another problem. I mean, skills get outdated. We'll be needing new skills. There's all sorts of research about what we're going to need. So it's going to be hard to do that. I like the developmental approach because we would be more plugging into what's driving people, also where they're at in their lives and careers. Yeah. Is that the idea?
It's reflecting more the reality that both as an organization and as a person, you are developing constantly. Even if you stay in an organization that is not changing for 40 years and you as a person stay there for 40 years, there is a lot happening both in your personal life and in the organization life that also creates this constant change. And I think over time, through the structure that we have created, which were actually meant to help people, to provide perspective, to give a sense of direction to people, that it's exactly that has created the rigidity that we want to let go today. But we don't want to let go of that long-term relationship necessarily, but it has to be built around much more this dynamic capacity to change, both at the individual and the company side. And what I learned from the numbers coming out of your study is that there is still a long way to go. If I just may summarize a few of the numbers that really caught my eye, was 4 out of 10 says that they are aware of the importance of training for their employability. So that means that there is still a lot that needs to happen if we want to put that skill-based mentality into practice. It also helps to explain why people are a bit inactive when it comes to this internal mobility that we talked about earlier. I noticed that 1 out of 2 says, I did not receive any training last year. But also 1 out of 3 admitting they are not on the lookout for any training, they don't want it. 1 out of 3 saying that they receive enough help to develop their skills. So there is still a lot of things that we need to do before we can really talk about this developmental culture or skill-based approach. And I don't think we need to refer to the rigid structures that might still be in place as an excuse for not starting to work on these kind of numbers.
I take away especially that skills-based approach being important, but is not at the core of changing really things. So I hear a plea for a developmental organization and focus much more on the build part, actually of career management. Thank you so much. Looking forward to continue the discussion in the next podcast.
Thank you.